Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We are up to page 149 of volume 2 of Rabbi Victor Miller's New Translation and Commentary of Duties of the Mind, and we are at the fourth category of wisdom. Of course, we are looking at Shah HaBakina, the gate of examining, and we're looking at the various types of wisdom that are all around us. And if you have an eye that's ready to see evidence of Hashem's hand in the world, then you can see it. And the more you look, the more you see. But if you look at creation and see it as just a means to an end in of itself, then you're never going to see it. And so what these chapters are doing is opening up these different worlds to us and showing us a look of Hashem as though he's just left the scene. So he's sort of created all this beauty and complexity and intricacy and detail, and it's freshly done, and he's just left. He's just sort of gone around the corner. Not that Hashem ever truly leaves us, but it's that evident. And one of the things that I've always been fascinated with, my kids are the same, is that when we see miniatures, we see models or miniatures of buildings and houses and hotels. You see them at those places along the Gold Coast and holiday areas where you can, enter into sort of like buying a unit, negatively geared or positively geared or whatever. And they have these models in the front of the actual agency, and they're so elaborate, even down to headlights and street lights actually being lit in these really small scale models. And I could just literally look at these things for hours on end, admiring all the intricate detail. And so we should really look at the world in the same way and marvel at the complexity and the beauty of a human body and a human being, how he exists, and he exists for years. And the human brain, as complex as it is, not only is that a point of fascination and a subject to go on for forever about, but the fact that it grows from like a micro sort of organ into a fully functioning adult brain, and on the way it's still working, that is phenomenal. And so, man might be able to sort of create something that functions similar to a human brain, certainly with AI now, but how far away is man from actually being able to cause an organism to be produced by a seed being gestated inside an egg, and then that highly powerful apparatus evolving from two component parts, and then beginning to grow and learn as a baby, then an adolescent, and then as an adult. You just can't. You think, no, there's no way we can make that. We're nowhere near doing that. Okay, we can probably make something that's similar to a human brain. Certainly, it's not going to be sort of organic. Maybe they can, but to make one that actually just appears based on a combining of two like collections of properties, and then goes through a life cycle process, functioning the whole time, and growing and developing sekel, developing intellect, and then sort of functioning within emotion. Like it's beyond belief, and people with a serious face try and convince you that this is all random, haphazard chance. It's not even funny anymore, guys. It's not even a joke anymore. It's it's high treason. It's the highest treason of humanity. And it's just got no place anywhere. But this is sort of the mainstream thing that people are toting, this Big Bang evolution. Okay, so this is part 5 of chapter 4, the fourth category of wisdom, the fourth category of the subjects that have to be studied are the signs of Hashem's wisdom, which are clearly seen in all other living things, from the smallest to the greatest. The author is telling us an important principle about the purpose of all living things, or of living things. Besides their function in maintaining the ecosystem of nature, which supports mankind and fulfills the needs of humanity, there is a more compelling purpose. That purpose is to teach us the wisdom and the kindness of Hashem. Everything exists, has its own purpose within the scheme of things, but when we look at it, we need to realize that all creations are teaching us lessons, and that is the most important purpose. So everything that you see in the material world is a mashal for a deeper spiritual concept and understanding of a spiritual aspect and nature of Hashem. So everything that we see in the physical, you can use that as a mashal, as a parable, to explain something in the spiritual world on a higher level. Imagine seeing the seed of a maple tree with its wing being carried aloft by the wind. You ought to think about the significance of what you have seen. The wing is not a random phenomenon. It is there for a purpose, to ensure that the seed is transported away from the shade of the parent tree. The shade might prevent the sprouting plant from getting enough sun, but by being carried to a sunny place, the plant will have a better chance of prospering and growing into a mature tree. So the tree itself recognizes that it's not in a good spot, and so it has a mechanism by which it can, by way of the wind, can break off a piece of itself and go to a more prosperous area. That's the plant. So the purpose of the wing is to carry the seed away from the tree. However, there is a greater purpose to show that there is a plan here. How did the wing get there? Look at the structure of the wing. It has a frame of stout material, but the material of the wing itself is thin and light so that it can be lifted by the wind and carried far away. As we observe all this, we realize that the purpose of such things is to arouse our interests and make us see the wisdom of Hashem. That's the main purpose of all creation. So the world testifies about its creator, in addition to other forms of kindness that the world supplies to the creatures on the planet. Now, when you go for a walk and you pass like a sort of a nature strip along maybe a riverbank, and I saw this once and it was brought to my attention. It was a flower which was growing sort of wild, and the person that was showing me this said that plant is probably in a garden somewhere nearby, and sure enough it was on the other side of the road. And I said, well, how did you know that there was another one nearby that was probably purposely planted? And they said that that's what this tree does. When the wind blows, it blows off sections of it which contain seeds, and the seeds drop in other locations, and then it gestates and blooms and grows there. So and there's not just one or two species that do that. There's quite a few species of plant that actually do that. I think the dandelion's another one. You pick a dandelion up and you blow it, and all these little pieces sort of fly off and float in the air. They're like mini little parachutes. Well, each of them contains seeds, and so it's absolutely insane to think about that. This is sort of almost like part of their reproductive cycle. We need to study the entire range of living things, among which are those that fly, including birds and flying insects, those that are bent over, like animals, those that crawl, including snakes, and those that move around on four legs according to their various shapes and characteristics. We also need to consider the utilization, the ways that people make use of them, their benefits which people get from them, and their benefit to the world, besides the benefits that people get from them directly. Owls and snakes benefit the world by keeping down the mice population. The mice themselves are very important because they feed on creatures like insects that can be a nuisance to mankind. Each type of creature helps to maintain a proper balance so that no one type is able to overrun the world. We need everything in the world for its place in the ecosystem, and we need to study that benefit. In addition, we need to see the overall benefit, which is to teach us the wisdom and the kindness of Hashem. Honey is produced by bees for their own benefit. They need honey as a source of food so that they can survive the winter. But when we consider the tremendous amounts of honey that are taken from beehives for the use of mankind, we realize that the primary purpose of this wonderful substance is to serve humanity. And honey itself is a unique type of food in that it really never goes off. It never really has a use-by date. It can actually, a jar of honey can outlive a human being or several people, several lifetimes of people, and it still be okay. There was edible honey that was discovered in one of the Egyptian tombs. We realized, let me go back, it is by the plan of Hashem that bees are able to use some honey in order to benefit mankind with honey. So it's a giveaway that the honey is for mankind because the amount of honey that man takes from a bee, and yet the bee still has ample amount of honey to be okay, not to be encroached upon in terms of their being nearing extinction. So there's sort of like a giveaway there that, the world was created for man. Trees and plants bloom with beautiful blossoms and flowers. Why does the world need flowers? Of course, flowers are objects of beauty. They bring happiness to mankind. That in itself is a fulfillment of a great purpose. If there was no other purpose than that, it would be sufficient. But flowers also produce nectar in order to give bees their sustenance. As a bee enters a flower to probe it for nectar, it comes into contact with the sticky pollen grains. These pollen grains contain the plant's sperm cells that are needed for reproduction. Other flowers contain the eggs. When the bee visits the next flower in search of more nectar, some of the pollen grain rubs off. In this way, bees transfer pollen from flower to flower, resulting in fertilization of the plant's eggs. The fertilized eggs becomes a seed that germinate to produce the next plant generation. This complicated process is essential. So the bee, in effect, going about its job, actually enables the source of its sustenance to continue to reproduce after itself. This is an insanely complex and unique set of odd-looking circumstances that all play together in a cohesive role. When the bees go back to their hives, they convert some of the nectar which they have consumed into honey for long-term storage. In this way, they are able to raise a whole new generation of bees. The young bees then come out in the world and cause 100,000 species of plants and fruits to germinate. Without the bees, the entire process would fail. This is why, scientists are very concerned about bee populations. And in various parts of the world, there has been huge declines in bees. People just don't see bees anymore. And that can end up becoming like sort of the canary in the cage effect. When the miners were in deep, dank caves, to make sure that the air they were breathing was good, they would carry a canary in a cage, and if that canary died, they would get out of the mine as soon as possible. We wouldn't have apples, pears, peaches, or dates, etc. Grains also depend on pollination, but in that case, the pollen is generally transferred by the wind rather than by the bees or other insects. Honey, which the bees produce for their own benefit, is used by mankind on a large scale than is used by the bees themselves, and so the flowers are essential to the production of honey, which also brings happiness to people. So there's a threefold process of benefits that are being had here. So that's pretty interesting. So not only are plants beautiful, they also, provide man with, a very sweet tasting natural produce. And it's, the saying which we get from the Tanakh is, it is a land flowing with milk and honey. And so this is one of the mainstays that is mentioned in a place being filled with an abundance of not only food, but of good tasting food and food that is good for you. This is as mentioned in the reply with which Hashem rebuked Job. In response to Job's complaints, Hashem spoke to him to awaken his mind to the truth, saying, this is quoting Job 38:41, "Who prepares food for the raven, and when its young ones cry out to Hashem and wander about without food? Ravens are known to abandon the nest when the eggs hatch. Rav Asi investigated how their young ones are fed and found that the nest became filled with the droppings of the ravens while nesting, and small worms emerged from this manure. The fledgling ravens were able to feed on the worms, and so was revealed the plan of Hashem. Who is feeding these little birds who cry out to Hashem for food? He has already prepared their food in the worms that are formed from the droppings of the parents. So, somebody goes along, reads what species of bird is being referred to here in the book of Job, and then they look, with all the knowledge and understanding we have in the scientific community about this particular species, and lo and behold, the reason why it seems to be brought up here in reaction to Job's comment is that its parents just don't stick around. Once the ravens are born, the parents are out of there. But before they leave, there is waste, there are droppings that are left behind, and in that waste from the parent bird, there is worms that come out, and this is what feeds the fledgling ravens, the young ravens that are born. So it's just absolutely bizarre that the parents have this trait to just not be clucky and not want to hang around with the newborns. They're just out of there. They're gone. They're like a bad parent. And yet Hashem provides them an alternative method to gain sustenance. And, I guess they've got to kind of grow up quick because they've got nobody to sort of teach them how to fly or do anything. Not that I think birds need to be taught how to fly. They just have to have the ability. But it's so interesting. Hashem's kindness and wisdom are also revealed in the rest of what he related to him in Sefer Yov. Hashem's kindness and wisdom are also Hashem's kindness and wisdom are also revealed in the rest of what he related to him in the Sefer of Job, of Yov, concerning the various species of wild creatures, of the deserts and the seas. Fish are the harvest of the sea, a harvest that is almost as great as the harvest of the fields. Despite all their natural enemies, fish are able to reproduce and survive. They provide mankind with food on a massive scale. Large populations of people live off the harvest of the sea, and kosher fish is absolutely good for you. It's a lean meat, and at the age that I am, when I cook fish and I have a meal of fish, and then if I have a meal of poultry or have a meal of red meat, I definitely feel better after I've eaten fish than any other sort of meat dish that is available that's on offer. It just seems to have a really good effect on me, particularly afterwards. I don't ever feel bloated or don't feel heavy after eating a meal of fish, unless it's a battered fish from a fish and chip shop with chips and potatoes, and that's a different story. But if it's like a crumbed fish or a sort of a gourmet, or it's a boneless, skinless fish, it's and it's a good quality one, I always feel good after the meal. I never feel kind of sick, like sometimes you come out of eating Chinese somewhere or sushi and you feel ill, you feel a bit off. Partly that's down to the fact that you overate. We can assert extensive benefits to mankind from animals, birds, fish, and insects, but beyond these obvious benefits, we are being taught a lesson about the wisdom and kindness of Hashem. Note, the Kavod HaLevavot teaches us that the Bechina, the study of seeing Hashem's wisdom and kindness, is not an optional thing suited only for rare and pious personalities. So the content of this video and this series that we're doing isn't for a person that's supposedly a higher level above you or way above you in terms of their observance. This is for everybody, because this comes to everybody where you're at. That when we're not getting into sort of really sort of complicated stuff in terms of looking at stuff that's on the level of Kabbalah, but rather we're looking at stuff that's we're familiar with and we see and we interact with every single day, but our minds don't wrap around these things and think about them as though we should, as if we should, as we should. So this is what Kavod HaLevavot does, is get you to stop and look again at the things that you've been familiar with over the course of your life and say, look, Hashem is screaming out, he's crying out to you for you to notice him. He's playing a game of hide and seek, and he wants you to find him. He's excited about you finding him. Like a kid is excited about Hashem about their friends finding them. There's an old story of a rabbi in Jerusalem who came across a child who was crying hysterically, and the rabbi was with his Talmudim, and the little girl says, I was playing hide and seek with my friends, and I waited a few minutes, up to half an hour or so, 30 minutes or so, and couldn't hear them. And I was looking around and I couldn't see them, and I went out and I realized they'd all gone home. So they didn't matter. I didn't matter to them. They didn't care where I hid. They weren't interested in finding me. Yet when it was my turn, I went and found them, and now it's their turn to find me, and they just weren't interested in finding me, and they went home. And so the rabbi started crying along with the girl, and he started crying hysterically, and then the Talmudim asked him, why are you crying? And he said, this is exactly how Hashem feels, because people won't look for him. People are too busy watching Netflix. People are too busy watching streaming services, going to concerts, going on trips, buying new clothes, getting a new car, buying a new piece of furniture, all these things. And all the while Hashem is hiding, waiting, just anticipating for you to come across him and find him and make a clean spot, and then keep scrubbing and make more clean spots, so to speak, and get excited about the find and go, wow, okay, this is real to me now. It just clicked to me now. What you're saying for years hasn't clicked like it has today. Something like a cog moved, and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to see if I can move some more cogs. That felt good. That was liberating. That was interesting. That was stimulating. Okay, what else? What else can I find out here? Great, we've got a whole vast array. That's not even less than 0.00000.001% of the wisdom that's available to you that's sitting behind me here. It doesn't even scratch the surface of the surface of the surface. And so once you start, you're like, boom, you're in. You're going to do it. But so many people never start. So many people never go. They just go, oh, what's the next Marvel movie? Oh, I hope Deadpool and Wolverine put out Now, listen, just let me be honest with you here. Most of these movies are rated R, or they're adults only. And one of the issues that I had in the Messianic world is that I happen to know, various leaders in communities, and we'd have sort of conversations, and they'd be fairly open and honest with me. That's why I'm not going to mention any names. But it dawned on me that a lot of these teachers and leaders in the Messianic movement, they're not serious about their faith, because on the quiet, they will sneak along and see these movies which we're forbidden to see because of the violence and the sexuality in the films and so on and so forth. There's a bit of a tangent here, but it's a little thing that people have to realize. And if you're a rabbi or you're a leader in the community, then you can't be going off and enjoying the world like this, because a lot of these things are not kosher and they're only going to hurt you in terms of your thinking. But you have to pull your head out of that artificial landscape they've created with YouTube and theme parks, and this is all of artificial landscape. It's like that harrowing scene in the Pinocchio, the original Pinocchio, and the kids get taken to this island, and they're all going to be kidnapped, and something nefarious is going to happen. It's quite creepy. And they've done documentaries on the cartoon, and there's implications that it's sort of like an Epstein Island. And this is Pinocchio. The scene in Pinocchio where all these bad kids go, and eventually they start turning into donkeys. It's actually, it's got a lot of sort of stuff that you can actually siphon a marshal from, a parable from. So we don't want to be distracted by anything, and we want to find Hashem. We don't want to find anything else. We're looking for Hashem, and once we find him, we can find more of him and more of him, and every time we get more of a reveal, it excites us, and it gives us the inspiration to look and find out more. Okay. On the contrary, this study is the duty of every person. Of course, some individuals have more ability and some have less, but everyone must attempt to gain some of this knowledge. because the awareness of Hashem's wisdom and kindness is a necessary condition to loving Him. So, okay, you might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, as they say. You might not be quick on the uptake. Maybe you're a very sort of basic-minded person. You're a very, dare I say, simple-minded person. And I don't mean that in a way that's derogatory. I actually mean it in a refreshing way. But that doesn't matter, because there's still things that can be real to you that you can fixate on and that you can go with. And once you clasp onto this, if you have somebody of a very sort of low-functioning intellect, Hashem will increase it. I absolutely guarantee that Hashem will increase it. So if you don't fancy yourself as being a very smart person, being very insightful in intellectual matters, you're not an intellect, that doesn't matter. Wherever you're operating at, Hashem will come and meet you, and in time, you will develop a wider expanse of understanding Hashem on a deeper level, even if it's nowhere near or it doesn't sound as eloquent as some of these more intellectual people that have embraced Hashem. It's going to still be real, and it's still going to have a resonating effect with other people, and it's going to inspire other people as well. And then other people of high intellect will also be refreshed by you when they hear you speak, because you speak in a way that's more direct and cuts out all the fancy words. Do you see what I'm saying? We love Hashem only according to the ways in which we recognize Him, and the more we recognize Him, the more we love Him. So you're only going to, I was saying this to my son earlier, you're only going to be connected to Hashem on the same level that you are seeking Him out. And however you are seeking Him out, however hard you are trying to do that, is going to be how hard it is for your Yetzer Hara to get you to sin. So if your Yetzer Hara is very easily getting the upper hand on you and sinning, getting you to sin, that's a sign that you aren't trying hard enough to press into Hashem more regularly and think more deeply and actually strike out at trying to get more deeper revelations of Hashem and the world around you and what your mission is and how you can actually achieve victories in various things. If you're not spending your time chasing down books on subjects that you need to know, you want to know more about, then it's going to be very hard for you to improve, because ultimately, if you don't do the best you can to refine your bad character traits, the only alternative at the end of your life, whether you believe in Yeshua as the Messiah or you don't believe He's the Messiah, or believe Rabbi Nachman of blessed memory is the Messiah, or whoever you believe is the Messiah, it doesn't matter, because ultimately if your walk hasn't been a walk where you're pursuing improving yourself and rectifying and repairing your character flaws, then your destination can only be Gehenna, at least for a time, or another Gilgul to go back into the world, and then you'll have another lifetime where you can actually get into more trouble, rather than have a lifetime where you can get things right that you got wrong in the first one. Because let me tell you, in case you didn't notice, we all get spiritual amnesia when we come into the world, and it takes us quite a bit of time, even if we grow up in a frum family, to actually get our bearings and work out what the deal is with everything. So by having another Gilgul and avoiding Gehenna and having an opportunity to do the things that you missed out on doing, that's not necessarily a good option, because then you've got another whole potential lifetime of erot, of sins that you can accrue, on top of the ones that caused you not to be able to go to the orchard straight away. So listen to what I'm saying and watch a lot of the videos that this channel is producing and putting out, because these are helpful to you in terms of enabling you to actually do what you've been put here to do, and that is to fix yourself. There's no magic pill Messiah that you go on about the Messiah and you carry on about what he did and what he's doing and what he's allegedly going to do, and not do anything to actually fix your bad ways. And so that means you have to find prominent rabbis and sages that have come and gone, that are focused on various issues that you know that you are not good at, that you are struggling with, you are stumbling in. One that comes to mind is speech. Speech is a faculty that man has been given that arguably is probably the most at play in terms of getting man into trouble and sending him to Gehenna is misuse of his tongue. Because almost all the other types of sins, they are awakened by Lashon Hara. So if you commit any of the other sins, they don't invoke divine judgment as quickly and as forebodingly than evil speech does. Because evil speech can ruin another person, or ruin a family or a nation of people, or a whole generation of people. People who start false religions and cults, they're waxing lyrically. They're enticing people by fancy speech. So you get everything you can written by the Chafetz Chaim. There you go. There's a pocket size, and I held this up in another video. There's a pocket size there that belonged to a good friend of mine, Giordano Perry. He passed away. May his name be blessed. And here's another one. This is volume 2 of the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim is He Who Desires Life, and that was the Rabbi Kagan's, who was a Cohen, his nickname, and it was named after this Sefer. And this is volume 2 of the Sefer, and this is, I don't have volume 1, but I've read volume 2, and it's the basis of it is laws about rikilut, which is saying tattletales, tale bearing. There you go. That's what I was looking for. And there's other works that are available, written by other people. Let me see if I can find them. This one is simply called Guard Your Tongue. That's one version. And that is actually written by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin. And it was originally published in 1975. And there's different versions of that one floating around, Guard Your Tongue. And it takes the works of the Chafetz Chaim, and it puts it in very sort of brief little bite-sized chunks. So this is probably would be a good first book to sort of enter into this area. But if you're not going to bother, and you know that you say stuff that you shouldn't, then they're going to have to take that out of you on the other side of the veil. They're going to have to do a number on you in Gehenna to get that out of you, or they've got to jettison you down to earth in another Gilgul. Here's another one. This is called Master Your Words, Master Your Life. And this is put out by the Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation. And it's another pocket size. I encourage getting the pocket sizes because you take them with you anywhere. When you're waiting in line or you're in a bus or something, instead of doom scrolling on your phone, pick up one of these and start reading them. I mean it. You've got to start buying these and you've got to start reading them. You've got to keep them in your pocket. When you go for your phone, go for one of these, except don't read these in the toilet. Do not read these books or any Torah book in the toilet. You want to get into the toilet, sit down. You don't want to hear any Torah being taught to you while you're in there, and get out, clean yourself and get out, and then you can get back into it. And it's important to note, the people sometimes have a habit of reading the Bible on the toilet. Do not do it. It's only going to train you to not retain what it is you're going to learn. Because your body's in a place where it's working on evacuating things, and your whole body is geared towards evacuation, and you're trying to read the Bible. And not only that, it's disgusting and stinks. And so you don't want to be reading sacred words or from sacred texts, if they're translations, in a place of uncleanness. When we see the peach pit, hang on, I missed a bit here. We love Hashem only according to the ways in which we recognize Him And the more we recognize him, the more we love him. When people are accustomed to seeing the wonders of creation and thinking about them, they are actually growing spiritually greater all the days of their lives. Once a person gets into the habit of looking at things in this manner, then all of his life he continues to grow. When we see a peach pit, we should be thinking that this is a miracle of Hashem. Although a peach pit comes from a tree, it is encased in a shell that is harder than wood. In fact, it's more like a piece of hard plastic. It is so hard that even the teeth of a squirrel are unable to pierce it. Hashem's plan is to protect this seed inside from being eaten, to ensure that there will be a future peach tree. So, these are sort of seeds that they can't be penetrated. That's a remarkable demonstration of the purpose of intent in nature. The hardened peach pit cannot be cut open with a wood saw, and yet, miracle of miracles, when a peach pit is buried in the soil, it opens by itself. So it's almost this impenetrable object that can't be cut in half by a saw. But yet when you put it in the earth and it has the right conditions of moisture, it will open of its own accord. If that's not something that rivals Harry Houdini or any one of those other magicians that you've heard about, I don't know what else to talk to about with you, man. I don't know. That is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Hashem's plan is to protect the seed inside from being eaten, to ensure that there will be a future peach tree. That's a remarkable demonstration of purpose and intent in nature. The hardened peach pit cannot be cut open with a wood saw, yet miracle of miracles, when the peach is buried in the soil, it opens up by itself. The two halves of the pit are glued together by a natural paste whose special formula causes it only to yield to the bacteria and fungi of the soil. How that paste got there is the wisdom of Hashem. Once the peach pit is in the ground, the paste decomposes and the two halves of the shell open up, allowing the seed to emerge and to develop into a tree. If this is not knocking your socks off, I don't know what else to tell you. And we're not even looking at Kabbalah. We're not even looking at the high-end Torah. We're not even doing pirouettes in all this really lofty gematria or anything like that. We're not doing any of that. We're just looking at a peach tree, a peach pit, like a seed, and that is freaking us out. And it hasn't done it before because you haven't looked at it like this before. Instead, you've wanted to go and fly off with the eagles before you even know how to crawl. And so you've got to stop and go, hang on, we can get up with the eagles later. In fact, you're not even going to be concerned about the eagles. You're going to want to find out what's going on down here on the ground. This is going to be enough to knock your socks off. And then you'll be up there with the eagles, but it won't be because, you want to feel the wind in your hair and have the vantage point to see so much of the landmass. You'll be there because it's the right thing for you to be there. You won't be anywhere illegally. Do you realize there's people that are involved in the Torah world and learn things about the Torah that they're not legally allowed to be there to do? Meaning they'll go places in the Torah which they're not eligible to go. And this is what the Satan, this is what the Sitra Achra, the dark forces, the Yetzer Hara, this is what it capitalizes on. It wants to take you to places in the Torah that you're not yet eligible to go. And you go, well, I don't want to be where I'm eligible because it's boring. How is this boring? How is this boring? This is insane stuff. This is absolutely insane stuff when you think about it. You go, yeah, hang on, how does that sort of liquid, that sticky, gluey substance, how does it know when to go into action? When does it know it's in soil, and why does it do that, and why is it there in the first place? And then you think about modern day science, how they try and convince us how this evolved from some evolutionary sort of path, when in actuality it had to be created like that from the get-go. There's no way that could have evolved. It's too bizarre. It's too complicated. People will have answers for that as well, I'm sure. When we start thinking about it, we realize that the pit is a remarkable device. The hardened case of the peach is too strong for the powerful teeth of the animals to crack, and yet when we put it into soil, it opens automatically. It is clearly designed to protect the seed for the future so that there will be more trees. Who is the beneficiary of all of this? Mankind. Mankind is the beneficiary. They are the ones who will eat the fruit of the peach tree, and they are the ones who are obligated to think about this wonder and to thank Hashem for his plan and his purpose in making it happen. So next time you're about to eat a peach after watching this video and you're about to say the bracha, you should think about this. Think about what we've just shared about the peach pit. Think about it and give thanks to Hashem and enjoy the peach. Because prior to that, I'm just kind of going out on a limb here. If you're somebody who likes to eat peaches and you say the bracha, I reckon it's likely that you have never thought about this before. I could be wrong, but I reckon there's a good chance you've never even thought about this before. That is what the author of Kavod HaLevavot is telling us. We have an obligation to acquire that way of looking at these things. I tell you, if you study the works of Rabbi Avigdor Miller, you will be a different person. You will be a different person. I'm not kidding you. That's why all my videos of late are just mainly focused on this guy. Go through my channel and see how my channel's changed. And a lot of people might say it's for the worst. I don't care. But you see where the focus of my channel has gone. Because I'm seeing how this stuff is changing me for the better. And I can't, it's an act of negligence not to get this outfield. You know, I share gleanings from Rabbi Avigdor Miller through Rabbi Baka Ibn Pekuda, who his gleanings are based, daily. I'm sharing this daily, on a daily basis. And I'm not saying that so you'll give me a pat on the back. I don't care about the pat on the back. I'd rather not say anything to anybody, but I want to emphasize that you will become a different person. It won't happen overnight, and I'm still a work in progress, as we all are, but you will begin to become a different person. Once we acquire it, we will see that the world is full of opportunities. As we say in the Ashrei prayer, all your works shall thank you, Hashem, and your devout ones will bless you. They shall speak of the glory of your kingdom and tell of your power to make known to man his mighty acts and the glorious splendor of his kingdom. So there you go. That what we just read, which is from Psalm 145, probably the most quoted psalm in this series of books, to be honest with you. Verses 10 through 12. We have actually probably never ever done, not just you, me as well. We have but I have read this through before, but I don't remember reading this bit, so I'm glad I'm reading it again. We have probably never done what has been prophesied in this verse that mankind is going to ultimately do, and some do over the centuries, over the generations, is thank Hashem and to tell of his power by the subjects that we are unearthing. Excuse the pun. We are actually doing what has been set down in David HaMelech's Psalm 145, in Tehillim 145. Maybe you've done it before. Maybe you have. There's every chance, but it's unlikely. But we've actually fulfilled this mandate, this prophecy, as it were, in Psalm 145 verses 10 through 12 by examining these things in nature to a greater degree. And it's such a privilege. To make known to man his mighty acts and the glorious splendor of his kingdom, that is why all these things are made, to make known to mankind. Therefore, people must make the effort to gain that knowledge of these acts. It's true, very many people never think about this and might even ridicule it, saying that it's something only for extremists or extraordinary people. It's not. It's not for people who are extremists or who are particularly zealous. It's for everyone. Here, let me clue you into a little news flash. You are extremist. You are extraordinary. You are zealous. but you have not yet had the penny drop. The cog hasn't turned yet. Or the penny's dropped and the cog has turned for something that is not a legal path for you to go down. You're loitering down somewhere, some street, metaphorically speaking, where you shouldn't be. And you maybe been down there for years. And you are very passionate. You're very extreme. You're very zealous. But you're zealous for the wrong things. And Hashem doesn't want you to lose that zeal. He doesn't want you to lose that passion. He doesn't want you to lose that drive that just inspires everybody around you. He wants you to focus it on the right path. He wants you to focus it on the right path. I've seen people who've got so much zeal. You know, they've got zeal for certain minority communities and all these things, communities that are being oppressed and things like that. And what they're doing is they're trying to manage it at the farthest end. But when you come to the knowledge of the Torah and want your life to align by the Torah, that's the most effective and accurate way to enable that community that you might be so focused on, as long as they're a legitimate community and not a fake one or not an enemy of Israel. That is the most kosher way of resolving that issue with that community and bringing that community into a place of rest and peace. Not by going out and doing it all down at the farthest sort of most secular business end. It's by pulling yourself in and getting back to the Torah, aligning your life to being Torah observant at your level of whoever it is your station is in life, whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, and getting all your ducks in a row, so to speak. Yes, you can still have a heart for the preservation of sharks, or something. But that's the thing. You don't want to just be all about one thing and exclude anything and everything else about you improving yourself. You got people that are enthusiasts in various disciplines, and they go their whole life without actually spending time to improve themselves, and they walk from one broken marriage to another. Case in point. But I'm not doing it anymore. Not doing it anymore. Better late than never. And so you get these people like Albert Einstein was a phenomenal man. But those that knew him personally, there was a different side to him. But how much time do you think he spent thinking about, I could have been a better husband than, trying out other sort of huge other things in the world of science? You can do that too. You can still be great. It's a niche thing, and you can still spend time focusing on yourself and how to align yourself to be at one with the Kadesh Baruch Hu. Therefore, people must make the effort to gain that knowledge of these acts. It's true, very many people never think about this and might even ridicule it, saying that it's something only for extremists or extraordinary people. But the Chavot HaLevavot teaches that everybody must have at least some level of accomplishment in this field of recognizing the handiwork of Hashem in the world around us, and we will leave it there. That takes us to part 6, the 5th category of wisdom. And I want to thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed this sharing this learning with you today. It's brought up some amazing things that's got me thinking, got my blood racing, and I hope it has yours as well. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the channel and have a browse around the channel and see what else you can find. And if you can, share the content with somebody that might be interested. And onward and upward. Let's continue the good fight and keep working to bring Mashiach into the world. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.